Good evening. As you may have noticed, I am Mayor Kamal Johnson, Mayor of the city of Hudson, and I am here with former presidential candidate and founder of Humanity Forward, Andrew Yang. This town hall that we're hosting today is about universal basic income, also known as UBI, as well as our own universal basic income pilot here in Hudson. The deadline for that is actually coming up on September 20th. Please apply at HudsonUP.org. Make sure you get that in. And also, to be eligible, all you have to do is be 18 or up, live in the city of Hudson, and make $35,000 or less. So since we had a little bit of a hiccup, let's get right into it as I introduce Andrew Yang. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and incredibly grateful to Spark of Hudson and Hudson Up for teaming up with Humanity Forward on this universal basic income trial. And if you are listening to this or watching this and you live in Hudson, you're thinking, is this for real? Like, is this really happening where 25 people are going to get $500 a month for 5 years? And the answer is, oh yeah, it's happening. We are going to make an enormous difference. We hope not just in the lives of those 25 individuals, but really spark the community in a positive way. And if you have not applied, you have until Sunday, and your odds of winning are pretty significant in the scheme of things. I was joking before, this is not a New York lottery situation because the town of Hudson is not that big a town, and there are 25 winners, and there are certain conditions in order to apply. So do apply if you're eligible, because someone you know is going to be a participant in this thing, just about guaranteed.
Yeah.
And it might as well be you. I mean, who the heck wants to know the person when you be the person? So go to HudsonUp.org, apply. It's going to be, this is going to be perhaps the longest universal basic income trial in the country operating right now. So imagine knowing you're going to get $500 a month for the next 5 years. That's a game changer for just about anyone. But thrilled to be here and thrilled to help explain universal basic income to anyone who is interested in this trial.
Yes, and we're excited about this trial. Definitely apply if you haven't already. So, Andrew, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you first, came very as informational as you are in universal basic income? And I believe you were born in Schenectady, which is up the road from us.
New York. Yeah, and probably not that unfamiliar to folks listening to this, but I was born in Schenectady, New York. My parents moved there from California before I was born. And no, very proud New Yorker, upstate New Yorker. Right now I'm with my family in Ulster County, which is also not very far from Hudson. And I've spent time in Hudson. It's a beautiful town. I think it's a perfect environment for this kind of trial. I found out about universal basic income during, say, the last 4 or 5 years. I was running a nonprofit called Venture for America that was working to create jobs in communities around the country. And when I read about the future of work, I became increasingly concerned about how technology is going to impact the labor force. And unfortunately, right now, we're living a different version of these changes where the pandemic has sped a lot of things up. You're seeing restaurants and small businesses close and a lot more work going online and becoming automated. So when I read accounts of what was coming down the pike and the things that I'd seen myself, it was clear to me that universal basic income was going to be necessary in our country. The sooner the better. And it's not a new idea. It's an idea that has been with us since our country's founding. Thomas Paine was for it. Later, Martin Luther King was for it. It almost became law under Nixon. Milton Friedman, the economist, who most people regard as fairly conservative, was for it. So there's a very rich history behind universal basic income, and I'm glad that I helped introduce it to more Americans right as we needed it most. Right now, because of the pandemic, millions of Americans are struggling, and a majority of Americans believe we need universal basic income in this country right now, in perpetuity. And they are correct. Now, I'm not one to wait for Congress to get its act together. So we need to demonstrate that universal basic income would improve the lives of the vast majority of Americans. And that's what this trial is in part about. That's what my presidential campaign was about. And again, it's an old idea that's been with us for decades. So certainly I'm not the original champion of universal basic income, but I'm glad to be joined by many others like you, Kamal, and the other mayors for guaranteed income around the country who I know you've been in touch with, that there are now dozens of mayors around the country who are planning trials like this one. So it's a thrill to be part of such a vibrant movement and to be a part of it.
Thank you. I know when I first came across your information, you know how you get the little news facts on your phone, and it said upstate candidate wants to give every American $1,000 a month, and I was just like, this has got to be a joke. But then after hearing you speak and also being a part of Mayors for Guaranteed Income and going through this pilot, I learned so much that this is actually not something that's radical, but it's actually very practical. And one of the questions that came in is, you know, how could this pilot affect a small community like Hudson? And in your view, why is this a great location for the program?
I think Hudson's a great location in part because the community is not massive. It's fairly small and tightly knit, so that people will feel the impact of a trial even that affects only 25 people. It's a diverse community, both socioeconomically and racially. Uh, it's almost the size of the average small town in the United States of America. So if you were to imagine a town that's emblematic of much of the country, Hudson, New York would be high on the list. Uh, and having spent time in Hudson, Hudson's like many other parts of the country where there are some great things going on and then there's some real struggles.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's a microcosm of what much of America is going through. And we think universal basic income would help virtually any town around the country. And we're excited to see what it does in Hudson over the next 5 years.
So how did you come in contact with Hudson? And I want to give a shout out to Spark of Hudson and the HudsonUP initiative.
So it was through the Spark of Hudson team. I've been friends with Albert Wenger and Susan Danziger for years. They were people I knew through the entrepreneurship community. I had spent time in Hudson and had a lot of affection for the town. And so when the Spark of Hudson and HudsonUP approached Humanity Forward and said, we'd like to initiate a universal basic income trial in Hudson, knowing the town like we did, we said, wow, that would be tremendous. We think that would be a great community and a great fit, but want to give full credit to Spark of Hudson and HudsonUP for identifying the site so early on. The truth is that we were looking for a place to implement a trial, and they brought Hudson to us or us to Hudson, depending upon how you look at it.
So what are you looking to accomplish with this trial? Like, what does success look like?
Well, there are a lot of myths around universal basic income, and success for us would be that the participants in the trial experience improved sense of well-being, mental health, stress levels, relationships, the ability to make different kinds of choices. In a word, freedom, really. We called it the Freedom Dividend. And right now, so many Americans have the equivalent of a boot on our throat, where if you can't pay your bills and you're not sure what the future holds, it can really cloud your ability to think about the right course of action or the right path forward. And so, if this trial demonstrates that people live better as a result of something as straightforward as getting $500 a month for 5 years, there is no reason that we as a country cannot make this happen for everyone. And I'm very confident that the people in Hudson will experience what people in other environments around the country and around the world have experienced when they get this kind of cash transfer. Some of the myths around it are that somehow it will diminish work ethic, when in many cases the opposite is true. That people will do negative things with the money, when in virtually every case people will do exactly what you would do. It's funny where everyone thinks like someone else is going to do something negative, and then they think, but like I would be great. It turns out that most people do great things with economic resources because it's in their hands and they know best how to solve their own problems. So
Yeah.
those are some of the things that we're excited about. We're also excited about the possibility of humanizing a narrative around universal basic income, where if I say we're going to give people money, a lot of people react the same way you did when you first saw that news story, which is it's too good to be true or
Yeah.
it's impossible. But then when they see it in practice and they hear human being, maybe even in this case, their friends and neighbors, describing the impact, then it becomes real to people in a different way. And one of our goals is to activate people to see what we can do for everyone. So hopefully the stories that emerge from this trial end up uh, sparking a sense of possibility, not just here in New York, but even around the country.
And I think a lot of also what you said was proven by the $1,200 stimulus, as research shows most people use that to, pay bills and really prevent themselves from going farther into poverty. Since announcing this initiative, and whenever universal basic income is mentioned, there's always skepticism. And people will say, you know, why do people deserve this money? And why should everyone get it? What are your thoughts?
We are citizens and stakeholders in the richest country in the history of the world. Our economy's top line uh, value generation every year is over $20 trillion a year. And we just saw very clearly that when push came to shove, our Congress nearly unanimously authorized over $2 trillion in stimulus funds, most of which went to big companies and corporations around the country. And so it's well past time that we started to treat our people with the same level of attention that we give these large companies that get bailouts anytime they run into any kind of trouble. Um, so it seems somewhat um, dramatic in 2020, but it only seems dramatic because we have slipped so far in a particular direction, where now we don't think that our economy exists to serve us. We think somehow that all people exist to serve the economy. And we've had it backwards for a long time. It's time to get it right and rebalance the most dramatic winner take all economy in the history of the world, which we've been living with for years now. So, to me, this is an overdue movement towards human dignity and treating ourselves fairly.
And you kind of touched on it a little bit, but like often, and I know I always hear this, is like, how are we going to pay for this?
Well, one of the data points I always use is Amazon, where you have this $1 trillion tech company that literally paid zero in taxes last year. And
Mm-hmm.
people look up and say, wait, how could Amazon pay zero? And it's not just Amazon. Netflix also paid zero. And you can love these companies and also think that it's ridiculous that they're paying zero in taxes. I mean, how the heck is that possible? None of us gets that luxury, and we're not trillion-dollar companies. So we have to harness the gains that are being experienced by some of the richest companies in the history of the world if we're going to have a chance to rebalance the economy so it works for us, particularly as artificial intelligence and other technologies get more and more advanced, where Google just announced that they have AI that's going to replace call center workers. So if you think about that, what's that going to mean for us or workers in call centers around the country? And then what does that mean for tax revenue? Right now, Google doesn't pay that much in tax, and a lot of their earnings stay overseas. So we have to modernize our revenue system in this country so that it actually takes advantage of the gains that are happening in other parts of the economy.
So one question that came in is, for this particular pilot, how will 25 people prove anything about universal income since it's not technically universal?
Well, if you have 25 people who are recipients and you have very consistent findings, we think that's going to be very powerful. So clearly, uh, I'd like it to be 2,500 people. You know, I'd like it to be everyone.
You and me
Um,
both.
uh, but I'm confident that the data and the narratives that flow from these 25 families is going to demonstrate something extraordinarily positive. And it's going to be inspiring and catalytic for other people to look and see that something as straightforward as putting money into people's hands actually solves many of the problems we've been trying to solve for years, even decades.
And given that, what are your long-term goals for UBI? Especially people want to know, like, as far as Hudson goes, as well as national.
Nationally, now 55% of Americans think that we should have universal basic income right now and forever. And over 75% of Americans think we should have cash relief during this pandemic. So, why are these things not happening? These things are not happening because our Congress is not functioning the way it should. And we can help change that. But the way we change that is by demonstrating what's possible and by showing that we can do better for our people, we can do better for ourselves. So we're doing this trial in Hudson, but the goal is to keep on growing and get this done around the country. Again, our legislature just authorized over $2 trillion, the vast majority of which went to various companies. I mean, we can do this. It's just we've allowed ourselves to be subordinated to the corporate interests for far too long. That's what we'd like to change with the people of Hudson. And if you think about this trial, for people who look at it um, and say that it seems like again a dramatic thing to do, to me this is the most human thing you could do. Is that if you have the ability to improve people's lives and you don't do it, what does that say about you? Uh, in this case, we can do this for everyone in the country. We just need enough people to wake up to that possibility and then for our government to respond to popular will. So, this is what my campaign was built on, and we're thrilled to keep on making strides toward those goals.
And one of the things that people always say when it's kind of negative about UBI is that it's going to go to the wrong people, or though it's spending wealthy people's money. Um, what do you say about those criticisms?
Again, we're all the stakeholders and citizens of the richest country in the history of the world, and uh, we have, for example, been allowing our data to be sold and resold for over $200 billion a year right now, and we're not seeing a dime of it. I mean, like this is an overdue rebalancing of the economy to work for people, and the folks who are fortunate enough in our society to have some level of resources, many of them recognize that. Many of them recognize that being in the most extreme winner take all economy in the history of the world is not a good thing for anyone. And if we can distribute that value in a way that helps families, helps human beings, helps small businesses, helps communities, helps the economy, then we should do it. And the only thing that's holding us back right now is a sense that it's possible. There are people watching this I know in Hudson who like they don't really believe this is going to happen. They're signing up because they're like, well, maybe this will happen. Like, the Yang guy, I've seen him on TV. He doesn't seem like the sort who's just going to disappear. Like, they say this is going to happen. The mayor's on board. Like he thinks it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Pretty freaking like quickly and soon.
Yeah.
And so people who are skeptical that it's going to happen, like apply. And then some of you are going to get chosen. And when you get chosen, you're still going to be like, I'm not going to believe this until it hits my bank account. I understand. But then it is going to hit your bank account, or it's going to hit your friend or your neighbor's bank account. And then they're also going to be like, I can't believe this is happening. I mean, like that's what we have to do. We have to open people's minds and hearts to what's possible in this country. And I grew up the son of immigrants. I understand what it's like to be in an environment where you are making massive time money trade-offs all the time. You'll spend an extra several hours to save a few bucks, and in that context, it's hard to imagine that someone could just be like, you deserve $500 a month every month for the next 5 years. Like in that context, it's very hard to imagine. But I'm here to tell you that you do deserve $500 a month.
I thought you was telling me I deserve
it. You likely deserve more. Like we all deserve more.
Yeah.
We all deserve better. But there's no way to get people to that point without actually investing and leading and helping people so it's possible.
Yeah, and that's like one of the reasons why I'm so much a supporter and advocate for this, is because of the stigma that people are poor because they don't work hard. And in reality, poor people are some of the hardest working people. I come from a family, a single parent home where a mom worked 3-4 jobs, and we were still poor. So $500 a month extra could have done so much for my family. And I just think about now, people in our city, and I've said this kind of time and time again, they feel like they live to work, pay bills, and die. And that should not be the feeling that an average citizen has in, the richest, most powerful country in the world. What do you say to critics who say this ideal is radical?
I would say it's overdue. And if something has gotten out of whack for decades or generations, overdue can seem very dramatic. It can seem radical. But I would say it's radical that we've allowed ourselves to get to a point where the vast majority of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, where half of us can't afford an unexpected $500 bill, where you lost 11 million jobs plus because of the pandemic, and you're not taking care of your people, but you are there to bail out the big companies. So I would say we're experiencing a form of radicalism right now, but we've just been conditioned to it. And we need to start making this economy and this society work for us, our families, our people. We're going to look back on this period and wonder how we let it get so inhuman and so punitive. And I understand that people have become accustomed to this because, I too have been in America for the last number of years. Like I understand the way we've all been conditioned. But if we break that conditioning, we can build a better country and society for ourselves very quickly. Change can happen quicker than people imagine.
Agreed. And, as I said, when we opened this town hall, I think instead of radical, this is extremely, practical. And I think radical is young people having to force themselves to go to sleep at night because they're starving. And I think this type of out of the box, innovative thinking only can help bolster our community, especially at a time where it's so much needed. Another question that came in is what other cities are doing trials?
I was on a call with a bunch of mayors, so he could answer this more directly than I could even. But there's a new group called Mayors for a Guaranteed Income that has over 20 mayors associated with it. And the cities I've seen that have said that they are going to have a trial or already have a trial are Stockton, California, Atlanta, Los Angeles, St. Paul, Minnesota, um, Compton. It goes on and on. So I'm pumped to see these trials take place around the country. We're just getting started, and mayors know best what's going to help their community. Like they see it every single day. They walk around, that like they know both what the limits are and what the opportunities are. And so the fact that so many mayors around the country have embraced basic income as a path forward that's necessary is really exciting. So Hudson's in some great company. I'd say Hudson's maybe one of the smallest communities that's on that list. Like
Yeah, we
there's
are.
a bit of a difference between Atlanta and Hudson and all that. But yeah, if you go to Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, you can see the list of cities. And I will say that there are even some communities that are not on that list that are having basic income trials that just don't have that organization attached to it.
Yeah, some of the mayors that participate are Holyoke, Massachusetts, Ithaca, New York, Newark, New Jersey, Richmond, Pittsburgh, Compton, Paterson, New Jersey, Providence, Mount Vernon, New York, Oakland, St. Paul, and Philadelphia, and us here in Hudson. So one of the questions that always comes up is where does the Hudson UBI money come from?
The Hudson UBI money comes from philanthropists who believe that universal basic income is the future and their organizations. My organization, Humanity Forward, is contributing roughly half of the money, and our money comes from donors who believe that this is the vision of the future that we need to make real. So if you are in Hudson, you're wondering where the heck is this money coming from? It's coming from human beings who believe that other human beings should have the opportunity to prosper and live in a way that's more positive and befitting citizens of a country that has this level of wealth and resources. So it's just coming from people. It's coming from other human beings who want to do the right thing.
Other than UBI, what are some things small to medium-sized municipalities can do right now to encourage sustainable economic development, improve overall quality of life for residents?
I should ask you that question. I mean, you're freaking staring at this every single day.
Yeah, I mean,
like
some of the things we're doing here are grants for our most disadvantaged small businesses, populations for women, minorities, veterans, innovative initiatives like this, as well as, I truly believe for all of the recipients, that money is going to come back into our community because the more people have the financial relief, they're going to spend it back in their community, close to where they live. So I think that's going to help out our economy a lot. And, right now, we're just looking for any kind of new innovative ideas and initiatives to really keep our city thriving.
I am a big fan of what you just said about small businesses. That's where my attention immediately goes. I used to run a small business myself that became less small over time. But if you're in a smaller town or city, you have to look at what businesses are currently there and just try and help them succeed and grow. And ideally hire more people. That's certainly where I would start if I was looking at how to grow opportunities in a community.
and also really promoting entrepreneurship. I think that's, for my administration, that's been huge. And I guess this
Anyone who
question,
starts a business, yeah, more power to you. I love
yeah,
entrepreneurs.
I guess this question will come down to me, and it's will it be granted first come first basis or by need? So the way the metrics are set up, it's a random selection, but those who are part of disadvantaged populations have a higher chance. So everyone has a chance, but if you're, say, a single Black mother, your tier kind of goes up. So you'll be there. There's a little more chances for you to get selected. But anybody who meets the requirements can be selected.
Yeah, it's not first come first serve in the sense that like the first people who applied have an advantage.
Yeah, no.
So you can apply all the way up to the deadline on Sunday, and you will
Mm-hmm.
have just about as good a chance as anyone else.
Yes. So keep applying, HudsonUp.org. Hold on, one more question coming in. Is there, why do you feel like UBI works?
I know that UBI works because I've talked to thousands of Americans around the country, and it's crystal clear to me that money in their hands would solve a significant proportion of their problems. Uh, Also, I've looked at the numbers, and it has worked in just about every single place it's ever been tried in terms of improving people's health, mental health, trust, relationships, stress level, ability to learn, in some cases, entrepreneurship, to your point. So I'm a
Mhm.
data guy, I'm a common sense guy, I'm a human, and all of those things uh, have led me to be 100% sure that universal basic income works. And I would say that you also have to look at the magnitude of the challenges we're dealing with, where you're seeing millions and millions of households sink into the dirt right now because their jobs and livelihoods have gotten constrained or eliminated or reduced because of this pandemic, and that like these forces are just getting more powerful. If you look at solutions, you really come to universal basic income very, very quickly. I mean, why the heck do you think our country sent $1,200 checks to millions of Americans? Is because it was common sense. They looked around and said, okay, everyone had to go home. How are people going to pay their bills? Let's send them
Mhm.
$1,200. There really is no sensible solution that does not include universal basic income to the challenges we're facing as a country right now.
And I guess I'll field this next question. It says, what happens if a participant moves away from Hudson? So if you are a recipient and you move, you will still receive the money over the course of 5 years. Unless you're a voter for me, I'll try to keep you here, but you still will be able to receive the money.
Glad you took that one. I wasn't sure what the rule was there.
Yeah, no, we talked about that in the early meetings, and it's supposed to give you some kind of financial relief and burden. So if need to move out of the area, you should still be able to reap the benefits of that. And so if you're planning on moving, you can still you can still apply. All right, let me get down to the next question. Um, why would you choose 25 people, and why $500?
Well, you'd want to make it significant enough sum so it'd be a difference maker in any given month. And so $500 would be a difference maker to the vast majority of American families. And 25, because we wanted to make it at least, let's say, like a robust enough group of people so that you could get a sense of the trends. Uh, Again, I wish it was 2,500, but no, Spark of Hudson, Hudson Up, and then our organization Humanity Forward. And for those of you who are uh, NBA fans or Duke fans, JJ Redick personally contributed $75,000 to your trial. So when you
Yes.
ask like who's funding this, you can actually just say JJ Reddick. As
Shout out to
good an
JJ
answer as
Reddick.
any.
Yeah.
Uh, and so we're very grateful to all the folks who support this trial, including JJ. And we had enough money to fund 25 people for 5 years. The hope is that, again, we can do this for thousands and thousands of people in the days ahead.
Does immigration status matter?
Does it matter insofar as this trial is concerned?
Yeah, as far as being selected for universal basic income, I can speak to the trial,
please.
but
yeah, no, the trial.
Yeah, and I think for us, it does not matter. Anyone can receive, funds, and they can participate. All you have to do is enroll at HudsonUp.org. Is this something that you've seen on some of the work that you're working on nationally? The question of status and.
Of course, I mean there are over 12 million people in the United States who are undocumented, and so for us, when we were trying to approach it nationwide and saying we're going to roll this out to everybody, then we had citizenship as a condition, with the provision that we wanted there to be a path to citizenship for the people who are here and undocumented and are just trying to create a better life for themselves and their families. Again, I'm the child of immigrants myself, and so I know that immigrants make our country, stronger, more dynamic, more vibrant. But the plan when I was running for president was that universal basic income go to citizens.
Thank you. And also, I should mention that on the application, there is a Spanish version as well for our Spanish speakers. Is there anything that you felt like you need to say that you didn't get a chance to say as far as UBI? And
so UBI is an acronym. It's an abstraction. The real impact that we're going to see in Hudson and that I want to see around the country is the relief, the freedom, the food on the table, the heating oil, the ability to breathe easier. It's all about what this money can do for us. And that to me is what this trial is going to be about, is that when you hear about universal basic income and you think about it in a particular way, it's frankly completely different than the way that you'd experience it if you were receiving it, or if your family member were receiving it, or if your neighbor or friend were receiving it. It's a completely different thing in real life. So I'm incredibly grateful to everyone who is making this real life trial possible, especially the folks like JJ Reddick and Spark of Hudson, who are just human beings like you, like me, who have some resources and said, you know what, this is the best way I can dedicate my resources, is to helping the people of Hudson and people around the country see how we can be living better than we are right now. So I'm just grateful to them. I'm grateful to everyone who supports my organization, Humanity Forward, because you are making this possible. And we exist as an organization to help improve our way of life. And the fact that in Hudson, I know it might seem like it's too good to be true or fanciful, but this is really just people helping people, and I would not be in any position to help if not for all the people that supported me and helped me, and I'm very, very grateful to be able to pay it forward.
Is this taxable income?
I'm pretty sure that this level of income is below the IRS gift limits, which I believe is $15,000 a year. But you'd have to ask some of the study personnel to confirm the nature of the gift. But I actually know this from the campaign. I personally gave several Americans $12,000 a year out of pocket, and they didn't pay any taxes on it. So that's a very positive side.
Yeah. So it actually is not taxable income because Humanity Forward is a 501c3. So it is, like you said, still considered under the gift guidelines. So
look at that, man! Like you could have just chimed in and answered that with your. You
I,
asked me the question.
I'm getting the questions as we go.
You're like trying to stuff me to the end there. What was up with that? I mean,
it's all our teams just sending them through.
The last thing I wanted to do was be like, someone be like, "Yank said there was no tax on this." I mean, I was pretty sure there was no tax on this.
Yeah, and also the application is also available in Bangla on HudsonUp.org for our Bangladesh population. So, I want to thank Spark of Hudson. I definitely want to thank Humanity Forward, Andrew Yang. If you want to kind of give us some parting words on anything that we should be on the lookout for, how can we support some of the work that you're doing, and anything that you would like to see for us here in Hudson?
Well, this is a very exciting occasion, and what we'd love to see from people who are listening to this or watching this is just to have people apply by Sunday, so that they have a chance to participate. And again, imagine how much they'll owe you if you say, "Yo, you should apply to this thing," and they didn't know about it, and they apply, and then they get it. They're gonna owe you dinner once a month for 5 years.
5 years.
Seriously.
For 5 years.
So that's really what we'd like to see from people, is just to let people know that this is happening in your town. And obviously, if you don't get it, then you can still be like, oh, well, that was still like a worthy, 2 minutes of your life to sign up. But you're going to know someone who did, and then you can still keep tabs on it and be apprised of it, and hopefully help us spread the word in your town right now before Sunday, but then also around the state and around the country over the next 5 years, as we share the stories as to how this money was utilized and how it affected people's day-to-day lives. So yeah, just apply, tell people to apply, and please embrace this trial as a demonstration of philanthropy and humanity that we can hopefully expand.
Yes, we got a last second question. It says, since implementing this on a national level seems like it will take a while, are you involved in efforts to institute UBI on a state level anywhere?
We're thrilled about what's going on with Mayors for a Guaranteed Income. It's tricky to do it in a state because states have generally borders with other states. So if you did it, so there's one state that's essentially had universal basic income or a version of it for decades now, and that state is Alaska, which perhaps not coincidentally does not have a border with another state. So people get $1,500 a year or so in petroleum money every year. And so this is very much possible in the United States. Alaska, so if you do the math, family of four gets $6,000 a year. I mean, that's significant. So that is where we should be going. But in the lower 48, it would be tough for a state to implement, because if you can imagine Rhode Island doing this, there'd be a lot of people in Connecticut who'd be like, I think I might check out Rhode Island. But go there. I hear they're giving out universal basic income. So cities is the next step.
Yeah. So with that said, I want to thank you so much. Once again, thank you to Humanity Forward. Thank you to the Spark of Hudson. Please, if you haven't already, if you're eligible, go to HudsonUp.org. All you have to do is be a resident of the city of Hudson, 18 or older, or make $35,000 or less. And those applications, that sign up period ends on September 20th. So thank you for tuning in. I am Mayor Kamal Johnson, and have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone. Let's go. Hudson Universal Basic Income. It's going to be awesome.
Yes, it's happening.